What's going on, guys? Keith here, Two Guys How To. It's getting late. June went home, so I'm swinging solo tonight. We've done a bunch of stuff today, but I wanted to get one more thing done before I kind of relax or pop some wheelies on a motorcycle out in the yard or something. We're gonna rebuild a carburetor, and we're gonna do a light rebuild. We're not gonna mess with the metering jets or the float bowls or anything like that. We're just gonna replace the gaskets that's on the carburetor because they're leaking, whether it be from the accelerator pumps underneath or the float bowl gasket. So I'm working on, we got a 74 Nova right here. It's an X-Track car. We don't race it anymore. And you can see I pulled the carburetor off already. It's got this big high-rise 4-barrel intake. I took the bolts off earlier, actually June did. He pulled the whole carburetor off. We got it covered up now. And I'm gonna clean the motor up a little bit more. This thing has a 355 with a gear-on-gear timing chain, so it's obnoxiously loud, but it runs. I mean, it's just awesome. So let's get in the garage where I got the carburetor. I ran some numbers on it, checked a couple different things. It's a Proform with Holley fuel bowls on it, and a Proform lower bottom end on it, where the throttle, kind of where the spacer plate meets the actual intake. So it's a hybrid, but I checked it, it's a 750. So if you got a 600, 750, 650, whatever, it's the same thing. So if you bought a car and it's kind of giving you a headache and you don't want to quite spend the money on a new carburetor, and you're not sure what size carburetor you would even get if you did it because you don't have the specs, let's just go ahead and put new gaskets on the carburetor that you have and install it back on and see how it runs with no leaks. I'm going to show you guys how to get the paint off of here, or any kind of automotive part that you want to strip down without getting too totally radical. And I'm just going to use this cheap Walmart brand Carb Clean, and I'm going to spray it on there. And you can instantly watch it. It just curls up like a raisin skin. You can see it just comes right off of my finger. So I'm going to spray this thing. I'm going to get the pressure washer started. I had the carb taken apart, but I put it back together. I'm going to spray it down, even these front float bowls here, and then just pressure wash the stuff right off. So let's give it a quick spray, get the pressure washer started, and blast the stuff right off of here. All right, so we're in the garage now. It's getting late. I'm thinking I can hurry up and finish this. I took the carb off, and if you wanted to check whether I'm going to attach it to this video or another video, it had paint here, this Proform. It's got the Holley bowls on it, but the Proform was painted like an orange, and it looked kind of cool, but the paint was just kind of eaten up over the years, and the new ethanol gas, it had a sparkly purple paint on these float bowls. And we kind of call it a Frankenstein of carbs, where they just put a bunch of pieces together, which is fine if it runs fine. And this car did run with that 355 in it and this 750 double pump on it. This thing, it ran out strong and runs strong. So what I'm going to do is, we noticed, I went ahead and took it off, and if you set it the way it is, if the windshield of the car is this way, I've got everything set up the same way, and that's how I'm going to work on it on the bench here. And you've got your front and rear bowl. You've got your different fuel accelerator pumps here that are on the bottom, and they were just leaking. They've got this little gasket around here. They go bad. You don't want to over tighten them. If you open it up to clean the carb or check it, chances are they're not going to seal right. Then you've got another one over here. So we've got two on this particular one. I went ahead and ordered a kit from Advanced Auto for my guys up there, and Mike took care of me, and it's for a 4150 Holley. So, and it comes with a bunch of different parts. It comes with the gaskets for the metering heads here, the metering heads, and as well as the float bowls, excuse me. So once we get everything on there and we line it up, I know it's going to fit on this. We'll double check, but I'm sure it's going to fit because it's got the Holley parts on the Proform center section. This kit's going to work. It comes with a bunch of different gaskets, as well as those two accelerator pumps that I showed you, and their little diaphragms. You can see what they look like. They're just tiny, and they just get pushed in like that, and it creates vacuum that pumps up that gas, pushes that gas, and floods it down in through the venturies up there and straight down into here where your butterflies are. So we've got 4 butterflies. Some I think had a 170, 174, and a 175. And I double checked it. I mic'd everything. This, in fact, is a 750. So like I said, we're not going to mess with the jets, which would be the needles and stuff. That would be in here. We're going to leave them alone. We're not going to mess with that. That messes with the float, and that's a whole nother ball game of checking the caps to make sure everything is at the proper levels and really fine-tuning the carb. We're not going to get to that. The carb ran fine. We just had a problem with potential gaskets leaking on the metering blocks here, as well as the float bowl gasket, as well as the accelerator pump diaphragm here is just seeping out. So what I'm going to do, I leave it the same way it is on the table, the way it is on the car. Throttle cable is here. That's the way I took it off, and we're going to break this down. So first and foremost, let's just flip it over, and always take some pictures or just remember where you're at. And you've got those accelerator pumps. Let's just go ahead and take those off right now. And it should be 4 Phillips screws per side, depending on what you're working on. And even if you're watching this video and you don't have a Holley 650 or 750 or something like that, race carburetor, no big deal. It's the same. Just go in there, don't mess, just mess with some of the internals as far as gasket replacement, and don't mess with the real hardcore stuff that makes it run right, the jetting and all that. If it ran right before and you just had some leaks and you just need to clean it up, just get a kit, clean it up, put it back together. Don't mess with the major stuff inside there. So we're going to go ahead and take this accelerator pump diaphragm, and you can see mine's just popping off. Sometimes you got to take a small screwdriver. I just go real easy. I don't score in anything. I just pop it up. It's just pressed on there. Eventually it'll pop up off of there. And actually you've got your spring here. So you got your diaphragm. I'm going to set that there, and I'm going to remember which side of the carburetor, because both of these bowls have to go on the same exact way with your accelerator pump, and everything's got to line up when you put this back together. So we got a spring, and down inside there, once we get this bowl, there's like a little rubber, it's like a plug. So you're going to pull that out, set that to the side, and the little piece of it will break off inside there, and it'll be inside this float bowl. But when we take that off, we'll go ahead and just throw it out. So I'm going to set it back down the same way it's on the car. And on that accelerator pump, if I can show you, you've got your linkage here, the way it kicks down and all that, and you can see that little arm moving. If I hold it like this, you can see that arm. It'll pump up and move up. And I can show you on the back side one, the way it is with that accelerator pump. There's a little, almost like a cam lever that sticks off, and that side linkage pushes down on that cam lever, and you can see right there, and that's what's pumping the gas. So you want to make sure that lever is underneath that side linkage part with the spring. Take a picture of it, and it's pretty simple. You just got to flip the linkage back up before you officially put that accelerator pump housing there on it, and it'll go up underneath of it like that. So you want to make sure this is up, and then it'll go right on. You just tighten it down, no big deal. So let's get back to it. I want to put it the same way it was on the way it was sitting on the car. Take a couple pictures, you can make a couple marks. Let's go ahead and just get the other accelerator pump off. I'm going to put the front of the carburetor to my left. I'm going to do the back of the carburetor to my right. So let's just go ahead and take these screws out as well. Got one more accelerator pump and spring. And you can see there on that accelerator pump what I mean. It's got that little pellet in the bottom, and it just pushes up inside there with that linkage. You can see where that linkage pushes down and moves that little cam right there. Psst, psst, psst. And that's what's shooting that gas down into your insurance and just making your car go. So let's go ahead and just get this off. Remember, the linkage has to go. If you do it up on its back and the linkage falls forward, you just put these right back on, you won't have any problems. If you try to assemble it the other way and kind of flip-flop it around, it might give you a little bit of a headache to where you're going to get a little confused, but it's very, very simple. Don't mess with any of the linkage on the side. Don't pull out any pins. Just go ahead and take apart the essentials that the kit came with. And those kits will come with multiple gaskets and multiple stuff. But just use what matches your car, your carburetor. All right, so we've got another one here. There's your accelerator pump. This one actually looks like it's been changed. You got your spring, and you've got that little pellet, that little diaphragm piece. It looks like it's got a nipple. It sticks up out of it, but that nipple's actually down inside that float bowl right now. And I was going to see if I had another one around, but I did another carb earlier and I just threw it down on the ground. So we're good to go. Once again, let's just set this thing the way it came off. Get our screws set to the side. You know that goes there. With the back of the carb, this goes to the front of the carb. And I'm going to grab my, it looks like an 8 mil. Yep, 8 millimeter. And I pressure washed this and everything. I sprayed it with Carb Clean earlier, ate the paint up, pressure washed it, dried it out. So let's just go ahead and take these float bowls off. We've got 4 long bolts here that go into this main, the main middle housing. And they've got little plastic washers on them. Make sure you don't lose those because we're going to reuse those. The kit does not come with those. And we're ready to drop off now. So let's just go ahead and take that off real gently. And you can see right there, we're going to take these 4 bolts off with those 4 plastic washers with them. You can barely see them on there. Actually, there's one right there. Whoop, my bad, right there. So let's make sure you guys can still keep seeing me go at this. And there, it's just nice and clean. There's nothing in there. The bowl is off. Your metering plate is right there. And it just goes right back on like that. Boom, there's nothing in there. Don't mess with anything. There's nothing in there you got to be worried about. Everything's in here. So if we go ahead and we crack this metering spacer right there, there's the real deal. That's your float right there. That's going to go up and down when your gas fills. And you've got your power valve right there. There's only one in this, and that's why I set it up the way. That power valve goes in this whole metering block to this float bowl, back together, and it goes on the front of the car. So let's go ahead and set this aside for now. I take pictures and numbers and everything, and this has a gasket here. You can see this gasket that's on this metering block goes right in there. And there's another gasket, this one's blue, if you guys can see that, that goes up against that nice clean housing right there on the front of the carburetor I showed you. So, you know we're taking it apart the same way. Everything looks good, no one's been in here. I'm not gonna even mess with that float. This thing's already calibrated, it ran good, it ran strong, it just leaked out onto the intake. So, let's go ahead and take this gasket off. Like I said, I take a little screwdriver and I'll just kind of go up underneath right there and just lift it up, and I'll just go around the outside. You do not want to use like a razor blade or something. You're going to cut into it and you'll see it'll just lift up off of there. Yours might be a little more stuck and I'm making it look easy. Let's see, I'm going to get back under it one more time, go around the outside and keep it propped up with my finger, and it'll pop up off of there, and you can see there's little studs right there. I don't know if you guys can even see that. There's the little studs that stick up off of there, and they go right through the holes in the gasket. Boom. So once you set it on there, it's locked. And that's why it won't really come up, because it's kind of seated around those tabs. And you can see how I pushed it back on, and it's already, just to show you guys, it's stuck on there again. But it's not really stuck, it's just kind of locking in, and that's what it's supposed to do. So we're going to set that to the side. I'm going to lay it flat down. That's the way it came off. And everything's good to go here. Looks clean. We've got one more gasket back on the back side of this thing that touches up against the main part of the carb. So once again, let's just get underneath there. There's a square right there. Usually if you can get into those. I lift up real gently, grab that corner, get my finger under there, and run that flathead, that little screwdriver, just around the edge. Because there's a seat around there. There's a little groove that gasket gets kind of stuck in. And once again, there's another stud right there, a little tab. And it went right into that hole right there. So it just locks right on down in there. Sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. We know that that went up like that. I'm going to set that face down. And there's our power valve right there. And on these power valves, sometimes you got to get into them with a magnifying glass. There's stampings around there. Sometimes you'll have 4 stamps, and it'll be like maybe H or an 8, but it'll be the 2 numbers on the one side that are relatively what everybody's going with. On a traditional carb, you might be running a stock 650 or 750, might run a 6.5. So you want to look at the stamping, it'll say 6.5. Now this one's harder. Alright, so we've got that metering block off of here, and the power valve goes up inside that huge cavity on the front of the carburetor on the 750. Goes like that. We took the gaskets off, and the float's still in there, just to show you a recap, and it sits like that with our 4 bolts. So I took them off, I took the float bowl off. Looks pretty good. I'm not going to mess with the float bowl, I'm not going to mess with the float. We took this gasket off, popped this off, we took the other gasket that was stuck on the back here with those little tabs. And we've got that power valve, and the big part of the power valve, it kind of looks like almost like a gas shut-off valve or hose bib valve, goes right up inside that pocket. So I'm just going to go ahead and break that free. Sometimes you got to put them down. Don't break this tab where that float goes on there. And I'm just going to break that thing free a little bit. Sometimes, like I said, you put them down on the counter, hold it down nice, and just get it with this crescent wrench. I'm not using any fancy wrench, I'm just going to use the crescent wrench, and you can see even taking this off, the gasket's just shredding away. So let's go ahead and keep taking this thing out of here. It could be a problem with accelerating. It shouldn't really fall apart like that. I think the ethanol is just beating this thing up, and you can see the kit comes with a new gasket. So we're going to have to clean that, and there's residue around there. We're not going to even mess with this valve. I am going to save it in case we run out of problems and the stamping that I read was wrong. But let's just go ahead and peel that gasket off of there gently with that little screwdriver. Let's just see if we can get it to pop up. Sometimes I heat them with a hair dryer, and it reactivates that stickiness and just kind of pops it off that way. So what we're going to have to do is really just clean this off gently. Just go around it. I'm going to get most of it off, and then I'm probably going to use I don't normally use carb cleaner, and when I do, I use non-chlorinated. So what I'm going to do is let's just go ahead and scrape most of this gasket off. Don't dig into it, just be real gentle with it. And it's really embedded down in there too. Let's go ahead and hit it with a little bit of this carb clean. This is chlorinated. Let's get you guys right over top of this tray here. I've got a little drip tray down here, so let me just soften up that gasket a little bit. If you don't want this to get on anything rubber, it will just eat the rubber away. So now that we got a little spray, let's see if that did a little something. Just go around the outside. Sometimes you can use a dentist tool real lightly. And just keep working this thing. And then I'm going to use a toothbrush to clean it up. So I'm going to keep working on this. I'm just going to dig this out. I'm showing you guys how, real gently without scraping it up. I mean, man, it's really stuck in there. So this is going to take a little bit, but that's fine. There's only one power valve on here. So once we get that and we get it cleaned up, use a little bit of rubbing alcohol to clean it, get the gasket totally off of there, we'll be good to go. So let me finish on this, and then we'll get back to taking off the other side and breaking this thing down some more. Yeah, it's got a couple little holes there. You can't really see them, they're inside there. And they let air in. And you've got your couple jets right there. You can go ahead and poke them out if you wanted, or spray down into them. Make sure they're clean. They look pretty good. If you wanted to take those out, you could take those out and just put them right back in. It won't hurt anything. It just takes a flathead screwdriver. This just ran today. You just break these out real quick like this. Okay. And you just take them on out like that. Simple. And you want to check through them and look through them, and you can see all that's good to go. Make sure you put these back in the right where you took them out from. And I'm going to go ahead and spray a little bit of spray down in there. I had this tube, I could do it a little better. Put this tube on here. Yeah, we're getting good flow. Good. Yeah, and you can see where that gasket was. There's no residue left at all anymore. Boom. So with these, I've got a trick to cleaning these out. I just go ahead and take a little piece of speaker wire that's stripped, and I run it right through there like this. Simple. Each one. Spray them out. One, two. Sometimes you can mic these if you need to know what size it is, or on the outside it might say what size, but we're just going to put them right back in. Actually, we had this one like this. Put them back in the same way they came out. Tighten those down. We know those are clean. Everything's good to go. We're getting good flow back behind them. Just snug those down, and let's move on to the next side here. All right, so we're on the other side. This is the firewall side. Remember the way I had it set up? Once again, you've got these 8mm bolts with those plastic washers that I showed you earlier. Take this thing apart and see what we have under the hood here. Let's see if she comes all the way out here. Sometimes if these are stuck, sometimes you can just kind of tap on them a little bit like that with a rubber mallet or the back of a screwdriver, and they'll come out. Just bring it straight on out. Once again, we've got our 4 bolts and that float. I'm going to leave that thing alone. There's no gasket here. I will clean that with some rubbing alcohol. Set that to the side, and you've got your one gasket here. Sometimes you got to go around it and get underneath of it with those tabs and just pull it off. Yeah. Boom, good to go. Once again, there's nothing in there that you can really hurt. Don't hurt this tab that sticks off of here. This tab here is stuck in there, as you can see. This one is stuck into this metering bowl, so that comes right off. Same thing, looks good. There's no place for another power valve. Like I said, it looks similar, but there's no power valve on this side. I'm going to set that to the side on the right because that side's going there. And we're going to get this gasket off of here real gently. Set it down. Good to go. You see, there's nothing there you can hurt. The Last but not least is the one gasket on the bottom. Now I'm going to spin it back around just for my reference of this side going with the throttle. This was the front of the car towards the hood. This is towards the firewall. And we're going to go ahead and just expose those butterflies real quick right there. And you've got one, two, three, four, 5 screws here, 6 screws here that hold this one gasket down, which is one of these. And it goes right there, but it's going to go up inside here in between the main part of the middle of the carburetor and that base plate there. It's going to go right in there. So let's get this thing taken apart real quick so I can go ahead and officially clean this, put it back together. I'm actually going to take it to the kitchen sink because I pressure washed it earlier, and I'm going to scrub it with some soap and water and put it back together that way, just so I don't have to pressure wash it anymore on the car. I don't have to mess with anything. It's going to look pretty decent. I was going to paint it, but you know what? It's fine. I'm not going to worry about painting it. Paint will probably just come off later when you work on it, and I just don't have time to mess with it. But if you wanted to paint yours, this would be the time to break this thing down and paint it, and make sure you don't get paint inside the unit. So take those Phillips screws out. I'm going to set those to the side. And this thing should come right apart, and I'll show you right here. And like I said, if it won't come apart, sometimes you can, hit this lightly with a rubber mallet. We've been in this one a lot. And there it goes. So once again, I'm laying it the same way that I started working on this, with the throttle linkage going, and this side going towards the cab of the car, this side going towards the hood. And this thing's going on the same exact way as it came off. Do not flip it around or you're just going to run into problems. So there we go. There's your gasket right there. And I'm actually going to put a mark on this, an F. Whoops. Just so I remember that this is the front of the carburetor. And now I don't have to worry about anything. And we know that this linkage goes on there, so we're good. And there's a little gasket. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back here. And now I'm gonna take this in the house too, or over into the side over there, and I'm gonna just soap and water this around here. I'm gonna just leave it alone, not really scratch it. I might use a little carb clean, but I'm just gonna use soap and water and just get really down in it, lubricate all this linkage with some WD-40 or some 3-in-1 oil, and we'll be ready to go. So now that we've got this off, let's get that little screwdriver again one more time. Just see if we can get up underneath one little corner of it. And the middle looks like a good spot. I can get up under it, and you can see right there, boom. Now I'm just lightly moving it out of the way. That way, if you had to reuse this, it's not damaged. We can use it. And I'm gonna set it down the same way as when I took it off, flat side. So upside is up, go in here. Now I can take this on in to my sink. I call it my kitchen sink, but it's gonna be a wash sink. I'm gonna wash all this stuff, and then I'm gonna blow it out with some high pressure air, and we're gonna be good to go. And on here, it says front, so I know we're still good. Front to front. This goes to the front of the bowl. This all goes to the back. The front's the power valve. Here's our power valve. This is our new one that we're going to be installing back into here with that other gasket. There's a gasket. Actually, this is the old one. There's a gasket goes there, and we're going to install that new power valve, and we'll be ready to go. So let's go clean this up, and then we'll finish just putting this thing back together. And you'll be heading up the road in no time. I'll be out on the road tomorrow because it's getting late on me tonight. I scrubbed this thing. I took it to the sink, and I used soap and water and some oven cleaner that I used to degrease, and I'm good to go. So I'm going to set this all back down here, and you can even read the Proform, and you can see the color and the shininess of this when I shine it like that, how clean I got it. So I know the Proform was on the right side towards that throttle linkage, and the base plate was on the base plate had a big vacuum line in the back, and the throttle linkage was on the right. So all those notes taken into consideration are going to help me put this back together quicker and make sure I don't run into any problems. The bowls are all cleaned up, everything's good to go. Scrubbed everything inside and out, was real careful. This thing should run great. And on the jets that we had that I showed you, you could take those out and double check them, just screw them back down, as well as these jets on the top bowl here. There's 6 of them, or 8, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Take those out with a nice flathead screwdriver, make sure they're clean, you can see through them, as I did, and put this thing back together. So we're gonna set it back down on the table, Proform, or if yours is a Holley or whatever, just make sure you take pictures. I know mine's going back on the same way as I'm working on it, leaning into the car. So let's get busy, put this back together and get these gaskets on here. We know this is all the right side stuff here. This is the plate, this is your main trunk is what I call it right here, that holds everything together. Got our left side, and let's go ahead, we know that that power valve goes into this left side, so let's go ahead and install that and get the gasket ready for it. And this particular carburetor came with a basket, or a bunch of parts here, or a bunch of little gaskets in this basket here. We only need certain ones. Like I said, we're just doing a fresh up on this. So really all I need is that power valve gasket, and it looks like it came with 3 or 4. Some are gonna go out onto the outside of these float bowls right up there, where your fuel lines go up in there. So we wanna make sure we don't use those, and we use the one that fits the power valve the best. Where is that valve? It came with a couple valves. I'll set it over here. So let's just go ahead and check this. It's got 2. So these 2 match, and we know this kit came with 2 valves. We only need 1 valve, so we're just gonna set that to the side. We don't need it. And these 2 gaskets right here, they're almost like a harder type gasket. These are gonna be your fuel line inlet gaskets right in here into the bowl. They'll go right up into there, and you'll screw your main trunk up in there, so or your main fuel lines to your double set. So now that we've got that figured out, we know that this gasket's the right one. Let's go ahead and put that on the right side of our metering bowl. Screw it in there gently. It's a nice sweet fit. And you want to make sure it lines up for sure. So I'm gonna actually, let me just hold it upside down for a second, double check. And I'm gonna look around the outside just to make sure it's screwing in there right. You want to be careful because it will go in at an angle. So I'm going to try to just set it there. It's kind of a little hokey, to be honest with you. I'm going to set it down and screw it and watch it. And make sure it's even on all sides if you have to. It should fit around that power valve. Just kind of push it over a little bit before you tighten it down, or you're going to ruin that gasket. Let's try that right there. Real gentle. And you can see it's starting to walk a little bit. I don't like that. If you just slam this in here, you're going to just ruin it. It should screw down even more. You see how much more I got it once I got it lined up in there? Boom, no restrictions at all. I like that. It looks even around all sides. When I go with this little screwdriver, it looks good. Real good. So let's just snug that back down. Real gentle. Watch it, check it. Looks good. A little more, it still looks good. And I'm just going to tighten it until it feels pretty snug for me. And that gasket will swell up a little bit once it gets fluid. And you can see the front side of the power valve. It's doing its job. Everything looks sweet. So we can go ahead, now that we've got that out of the way, we can start assembling this. Let's put this main trunk down on there again. So let's get our gasket. And like I said, this kit came with a bunch of gaskets. So the one gasket that we took off, I laid it flat down. Let's match it up to see which one looks to be the best. Match up all the holes, look at all the holes. This is the right one. And I'll double check it, look at all these. These holes are slightly bigger. The center hole is bigger, so that one's not going to work. This one here looks pretty good, but if you notice, these holes here are straight. The holes on the one we need is curved. So let's match up the one that we chose before. These holes here are curved, these holes here are curved. This is our gasket. So boom. We're going to lay that down the same exact way it came off. And it's got a couple tabs it'll go down into right here. These little tabs. Just push it down flat. And it looks good. All the holes are lining up. I like it. So let's go ahead and put this thing right on here like this. Man, nice, clean carb I'm working with. I don't have to worry about anything. Let's flip this over. Gasket's in there tight. Let's go ahead and get these bolts, these screws back in here. I know I had two really dirty ones right in the middle, and I'm just going to put them back. I didn't clean those off. I probably should have. And let's go ahead and do the rest of these as well. Got 4 more ready to go. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and get those middle ones started real lightly. I'm not even going to tighten them all the way up. I'm just going to go ahead and get them started. That way this thing is seated right. Double check it. Looks good around the outside here. Sweet. So let's go ahead and just tighten these others down. And once again, I'm just going to put them in there, and I'm going to use a crisscross pattern. But I'm not tightening them all the way down yet. I'm just going to get all of these in there first, make sure that nothing's real tight going through that gasket. Like that screw there, I'm not really feeling it. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen up a couple of these other ones. See if that thing will go back down in there. There we go. That gasket freed up a little bit. That was sweet. That's what we want. You don't want to tear that gasket. So I'm going to snug these back down the way that I just unloosened them, because it liked to fit right in there. And double check this base plate, upper base plate gasket. Looks good. So now we can go ahead and just kind of get them all snugged down. And I'm going to run that crisscross pattern. Go back into that middle. All right, now I'm going to put my official snug on them. So I did 1, 2. Let's just go down to the bottom. This one, let's go up to the top, down to the bottom, back to the top. And I'm going to get a bigger Phillips head screwdriver. We're done here, and we can start putting the float bowls on. I'm just going to torque these down a little bit more. All right, I got that bigger screwdriver. It fits down in there a little better. Let's go ahead and start in that middle again. Oh yeah, that's a nice torque right there. Way better. When I took this apart, it seemed like it was a little loose even, and June had said something about it as well. And you know, you definitely don't want to over tighten it, but you don't want any gasket leaks either. It'll pull air from there, and you just won't run right. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, they all seem pretty good. Just do one last double check. Yeah, sweet. We're good to go there. This thing's done. So let's go ahead, proform on this side, throttle linkage on that side, and let's just keep on going with the float bowls here and get the gaskets for that. Like I said, it comes with a bunch of gaskets, so I did lay my gaskets down the way they came off, so I'm going to match them back up. You want to make sure all these holes are correct. This one is not correct because we're missing a hole right there. It looks good, but it's not it. So we're going to set it to the side. Let's go to another one. Flip them around to make sure. That one looks like it. Two holes, one hole here, there, one in the middle, two on both sides. That looks like it. This hole here is a little bit bigger, a little closer, but let's see what happens. Let's line it up. And you want to make sure all these holes line up to the metering block holes. Otherwise, you're gonna run into problems. All right, so we've got our gaskets and everything lined up, ready to go. And I double checked all my bolts, looking good. And we want to make sure we put these little plungers inside the float bowl here. When you flip it over, that's where that accelerator pump goes. So I put a little bit of WD-40 on there, and you're going to insert it down in that hole like that. Hold it there, and you can grab the top little tab, and you just want to pull that thing up in there real gentle. It's a little tricky. There you go. You'll feel it pop, and that's what you want. Whoop. And it's up inside there, perfect. So let's go ahead and get this thing back together here on this side. Let's do the other side as well. But before I forget, and I don't want to lose which side goes to where, I'm going to install this thing right now. We know the gaskets fit. Everything's good to go. I don't want to lose track. I know this is my power valve here, goes up into the front part of the carb. So let's just tighten that up now. And I'm just going to get these snug down now, and then I'll go back and forth with a crisscross pattern to get them, officially tightened down. Let's go around the other side and get that other little plunger in there. So we're going to split this bowl. We know the gaskets work. Set that to the side. Once again, right up into that little hole there. We're going to insert it inside there. And there's 3 holes. You want it in the middle hole, the biggest hole. Just push it, hold it in there nice, and go up inside and grab it. I wouldn't use any needle nose or anything. You're just going to pinch it. And when you pull it, it'll slide and pop, and you're good. It's good to go. That's it. So let's go ahead and get this other bolt up here. Get that long arm going towards that float again, the top of the float. Should go right on in there. Pretty sweet. Let me just get a couple of these tight. That way it holds that bowl in place. Snug them down. You can see I'm using my hand. That way I can feel any resistance on the gasket. I can feel it if they're not going in right. This one on the top 2 corners is always a little tight for some reason, maybe the gravity. So let's go ahead and put this straight up and down. Kind of shake it a little bit, make sure that everything's seated correctly. And if you look at it, it looks good to me. So let's go ahead and tighten those down real fast and get these accelerator pumps on here. Just going to keep constant pressure. Make sure the bowl feels like it's seated. Don't tighten it. Make sure everything looks good before you get it. Everything looks good. All right, so we got our float bowls on. Everything's torqued down. These little plungers are up inside here. We pulled them in gently. Let's go ahead and make sure we can install these accelerator pumps. You got this little cam right here, and when the butterflies open here, the venturis open up, it pushes down on this cam and sprays that fuel in there. You want to make sure the head of the nut is this way and the actual nut is at the top. The head of the nut is what pushes on this cam. So make sure that's good to go. Let's get our spring in there. Let's get our new accelerator pump. We know it's going to go like this. Let's double check this here. Make sure everything's going to fit right. Yep. So we can go ahead and that, and then just push that down. Make sure that you do have it in the right way. It's going to seat right. And you want to make sure this linkage is all the way up. Just kind of hold that straight. Let's go ahead and get those screws. And I'm going to get 2 of those screws. That'll hold that gasket in nice and straight. I'm going to get those crisscross across from each other. And let's just go ahead and see if we can get that lined up. And you want to make sure those screws are going through that gasket. They're not cutting into that gasket. Sometimes I'll tighten them like this, and then I'll set it right on top of that screw. Make sure you lift that cam all the way up and hold it like that. That should go in pretty sweet right there. Once again, I'm just going to tighten these down a little bit. I'm not going to over tighten them. I'm just going to get them almost down to the base plate. That way I can get everything in before we go ahead and officially tighten them. That one's the tightest one right there. You probably should have put that one in first to get it down inside there. It will come out, but let's just go ahead and get it in there. I'm going to put constant pressure right on the middle here. And once again, take them all the way down with that crisscross pattern. And we could double check it right now. You can see that linkage is going to push up on it sweet. So let's just go ahead and officially get these tightened down. And you don't want to over tighten it, but you definitely want it snugged up to where it's not going to leak on you. And I'll double check that once we get the other side in. So let me go ahead and get this other side in, and this carb should be ready to rock and roll. Okay, and on this other one, you can see the linkage is flipped over since we've had the carb every which way. Flip it down, that bolt head should be right there, and the nut part should be facing up. So we're going to go ahead and put this other accelerator pump on here. I'm going to grab that spring, set that spring in there. Actually, let me clean this. This spring looks a little bit dirty. This is the only thing I didn't clean in the whole carb, but that's fine. It's good to go. Be fine. Go ahead and get that cam lever situated on top. Let's put 2 screws in there just to hold that gasket in place. Let's just set it on top there. See if we can get it to line up the first try. I'll turn this around, show you guys again, but you've already saw the other one and you know exactly how to do this. You guys will be professionals fixing your friend's stuff. Let's just see if we can get it to line up to go through that gasket. And I'm not going to tighten it all the way up. I'm just going to keep even pressure. Double check the sides. Shoot, excuse me. All right, 2 more and we are ready for install on the car, which I'm not going to show you that because I already took it off. If you guys got yours off, you can get it back on. So I'm going to loosen these up a little bit just to make sure all these screws go in nice and straight. And then I'm going to take them all the way down. Keep that even pressure on there and take them all the way down. Double check that cam. You can see that linkage working. Sweet. I hear pressure building up. Looks good. So I'm just going to go ahead and snug these back down. Once again, I'm going to do that crisscross pattern and get this to where I really feel like it's not over tight and not under tight. Okay, so let's tighten these down one time here. All right. Good to go. I'm liking it. If I wrench them down anymore, I'll swell that gasket out. Let me double check this side too. Okay, sweet. Sounds good, looks good. Got the noise we want. Carb's good. This is the way it sits on the car. We got extra gaskets, extra stuff that we don't need, but that's fine. All right, guys, so next morning, got the carburetor back on this old Nova, and I'm gonna fire it up. I did already fire it up. It runs fine. Everything's good to go. So I'll start it up, let you guys hear it. That way you can make sure everything on yours runs and drives fine. And let me get in and fire this thing up, make sure they got enough gas in the back there. I know we're running low in this fuel cell, so let me fire it up so you guys can check it out. Yeah, she sounded sweet. That 355 is pretty nasty. So that's it. I was in the garage. I said my goodbyes. I'm out here. I'm gonna say my goodbyes. Fix it yourself. Save that money. Do it yourself. Change those gaskets. If you got a heavy rebuild, you don't know what you're doing, you can always send it out. If you're not going to change any of the metering valves or change anything like that inside there, except for just the you know, the gaskets or whatever's going on. You can put a new power valve in there. It comes with the kit. Just make sure you match the numbers up on the power valve, and it's identical to yours. They'll have the numbers stamped in there, either it's a 6.5 or whatever. Double check that before you replace them. But if it comes with one and it's the right exact one, or you order one for it, go ahead and put that power valve in there. Fix the gaskets, put it back on the car, you're good to go. Some of those gaskets in there you're not going to need because those kits are multilingual kind of deal, like not multilingual, but they're from any carburetor. So you might have some gaskets in there you're just not going to need. So use the ones that match up to yours. Fix it, save that money. I'm out. Questions, comments, hit me up. Check out the other videos, and I'm on to the next thing tonight. Peace. What's up, Iggy? Talk to him before I shut the video down. Oh yeah. Yep. You're not a pig, you're a lawyer. He's not a pig, he's a lawyer. Peace.
I'm not a pig, I'm a lawyer.